What is going on, boys? The NHL season is finally here. We have games tomorrow night, and I want to break down everything related to week one and its schedule. We're going to be looking at the teams with the most off nights, the least amount of games, the easiest schedules, the hardest schedules, and most importantly, I want to give you guys the streamers to help you maximize your games and potentially help you win week one. Without further ado, let's dive right into it. First off, we're going to be talking about the teams with the most off nights for this week. This is very important because there are a number of teams that only play 1 or 2 games this week, so having players on these teams is going to be extremely beneficial for maximizing your games. In terms of the rankings here, I've ranked them by first, the amount of games that they play, second, the amount of off nights they have, and third, the last tiebreaker, is their opponent goals against average. Obviously, the higher the opponent goals against average is, the better. You want players playing against teams that let in a lot of goals. So if we're ranking these teams right now, we have the Vegas Golden Knights, great schedule in terms of off nights compared to the rest of the NHL, and their opponents let in a lot of goals, so that's great. We have the Hurricanes, the Pens, and the Lightning, and then we have a little bit of a tier break. We still have the Kraken, Blackhawks, and the Sens playing 3 games and having 2 off nights, but their opponent goals against average is kind of middle of the pack. And then we have the Preds. They have 3 games and 2 off nights, but unfortunately their opponent goals against average is very low, meaning that it might be tough for them to score the same amount of goals as these other teams. You don't have to follow this by heart because I'm still going to suggest for you guys to pick up some Preds players. However, it is something to consider. And then finally we have the Devils. They only have 2 games, but they have 2 off nights, which is great, Thursday and Friday. So if you want to pick up a Devils player on Wednesday and get those 2 games, that is going to be very beneficial for maximizing your games. Now I want to talk about the teams with the least amount of games, and guys, it's going to be very tough if you have multiple players on these 4 teams. They only play 1 game this week. The Isles, the Coyotes, the Capitals, and the Stars. Now, if you have some superstars on these teams, you're just going to have to suck it up. However, you might have to make a decision and drop some players on these teams if they're kind of middle of the pack, not that good, and you can afford to drop them, but you're going to have to make that decision yourself. In general, guys, I wouldn't suggest picking up any players from these teams unless you think they're really good long-term and you want to hold on to them. It depends how much it is going to be worth it because picking up some players on these teams could cost you your week 1 matchup. Now, I want to talk about the best opponent record. And guys, if you have goalies on these 5 teams right here, it could be beneficial. They could get some wins. They could have some really big nights. And if you have some players as well, they're playing poor teams. So those poor teams are probably going to let in a lot of goals. We have the Flyers, the Vegas Golden Knights, the New Jersey Devils, the New York Rangers, and the Boston Bruins. Then for the worst opponent record, it's going to be tough for the goalies on these teams and maybe some of the players as well. We have the Arizona Coyotes, the Anaheim Ducks, the Nashville Predators, the Los Angeles Kings, and the San Jose Sharks. Moving on to the teams with the highest opponent goals against average. These teams are playing against teams that let in a lot of goals. Now, this is data from last year. Some teams are going to get better. Some teams are going to get worse. However, there's a very good chance if you have players on these teams that they're going to put up a lot of points this week. So let's list these off. We have the New York Rangers at number 1, the Vegas Golden Knights at number 2, the Flyers at number 3, the Edmonton Oilers at 4, and the New York Islanders at number 5. Moving on to the teams with the lowest opponent goals against average. These 5 teams right here might have some difficulty scoring goals how they normally do. We have the Los Angeles Kings, the Buffalo Sabres, the Anaheim Ducks, the Florida Panthers, and the Arizona Coyotes. Now, I want to talk about streamers, guys. Obviously, the first couple of weeks, you're going to want to keep an eye on the waiver wire and pick up some of those gems. I talked about a bunch of those players in my previous video. However, if you're feeling confident with your team and you want to maximize your games for week 1, these guys are going to be good pickups. We have Filip Forsberg at number 1. I know you're probably thinking Forsberg is rostered in most leagues, but he's only 69% roster, so there's a chance that he could be sitting on the waiver wire. I think Forsberg's a great long-term pickup, but for now, the Predators have 3 games and 2 off nights, so maximizing your schedule, he's going to be good. We have Matty Beniers, potential breakout. I'm not sure, right? The Kraken run a very balanced offense, but he was great last year. We have Hagel, who's on the first-line power play. We have Seth Jarvis, who's on the first line and the first-line power play. We have Dawson Mercer, who's in the top 6. Not sure about his power play time, but still, there's a chance he puts up a lot of points. Could be a good pickup on Wednesday night. We have Jordan Eberle, we have Chandler Stevenson, Taylor Hall, playing alongside Connor Bedard. We'll see how that plays out. Thomas Novak, huge sleeper on the first line power play. Michael Bunting apparently is going to be on the first line and the first line power play. That's pretty huge if that stays the same. We have Andre Burakovsky, Ivan Barbashev, who's playing on the first line alongside Jack Eichel, puts up some great hits as well. And then we have Rickard Rakell and Brian Rust. All these players here have 3 games and 2 off nights with the exception of Dawson Mercer. Mercer, so it's going to be good for maximizing your schedule. Now, if we're looking at some players that might be better options in deeper leagues, we have another list here. We have Ryan O'Reilly, Oliver Bjorkstrand, Jesper Kotkaniemi, Riley Smith, Yanni Gord, Teuvo Teravainen, Lucas Reichel, Jaden Schwartz, Taylor Radish, Tyler Johnson, Eli Tolvanen, Luke Evangelista, who is on the first line power play on Nashville. Then we have Cody Glass and Philip Tomasino, right? We do have more deeper league options as well here, boys. We have Dominik Kubalik, who has played decent in the preseason. He might not be in the top 6, but he could have some big nights with 3 games and 2 off nights. We had Ridley Grieg, I think that's how you pronounce his last name. With Josh Norris out, it looks like he's going to be on the second line, centering that line. And he's played pretty well in the preseason so far, so that could be a good option. We have Juuso Parssinen, who's playing on the first line right now. So yeah, Palat, who is on the third line right now, but he could put up some points, guys. He could get some power play time. We'll see how it all plays out. Sorelli, again, a deeper league option, but he's centering that second line. We have Holtz on the third line on the Devils. We have Jordan Stahl, who, puts up good peripherals. He is on the third line as well. And then we have Tanner Jeannot. Listen, with Jeannot, obviously he was terrible when he went to Tampa last year. He was terrible in Nashville as well. But if you're in a league that counts hits and he can manage to bounce back, then Jeannot can obviously be a very good stream for this week. So that's pretty much it, guys. I may be missing some players. It's hard to rank all of them, but in general, a lot of these guys are going to help you maximize your games. Now, I want to give you some strategy on how to actually utilize these streamers and maximize your games properly. As I said earlier, we have the teams with the least amount of games, the Islanders, the Coyotes, the Capitals, and the Stars. What you're going to want to do is drop a guy that you don't think is worth holding on to long term. Maybe a guy like Anders Lee. Instead of holding on to Anders Lee the entire week and then playing him Saturday, where you might not even be able to fit him into your lineup because Saturday is such a heavy night, what you can do is, like I said, drop him and then pick up a player that has 3 games and 2 off nights like Taylor Hall. You can keep him for the entire week. However, you can utilize a different strategy to help to maximize your games even further. If you're looking at Taylor Hall's schedule, he plays Tuesday, Wednesday, and Saturday. On Saturday, you're likely going to have to sit some guys. So what you can do instead is drop Taylor Hall on Thursday and pick up a player from the Devils. They play Thursday and Friday. So 2 adds, you get 4 games with off nights. You get Taylor Hall on Tuesday and Wednesday, and maybe you get Dawson Mercer on Thursday and Friday. That's the essence of maximizing your games. Again, it's going to be very schedule dependent, depending on where you can fit guys into your lineup. However, that could be a strategy, getting those back-to-backs for Chicago and then back-to-backs for the Devils. That can give you a lot of games. So just right there, 2 adds, Taylor Hall and Dawson Mercer, I get 4 games out of there instead of keeping Anders Lee, who's only going to give me 1 game on a very heavy night like Saturday. So guys, like I said, use your ads effectively, try to maximize your games. It's going to give you a huge edge against your opponents. I hope this video helped. And make sure you hit the subscribe button if you're new to the channel, hit the like button if you enjoyed it, and I will catch you in the next one.